Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Amy plays a Grizzly Bears and says that she'll use Electropotence to deal 2 damage to Nick. In response, Nick uses a Deflecting Swat to change the target of Electropotence's ability to Amy. Then Amy says that she doesn't want to pay the 3 mana anymore. Is this allowed? Okay, so in order to answer this question, let's carefully read Electropotence's ability so that we can understand exactly how it functions. We can see that it has a triggered ability that triggers when the Grizzly Bears enters the battlefield and targets Nick. When this triggered ability resolves, Amy will have the opportunity to pay 2 into red, and depending on whether she does, the thing that got targeted, Nick in this case, will take damage. Now, the important thing to notice here is that the opportunity to pay 2 into red happens when this triggered ability resolves. That means that if, at that time, Amy does not want to pay that mana, for example, because the target has changed into something that she doesn't want to damage, then she doesn't have to. Accordingly, the play described in the original problem statement works out exactly like Amy said. Another interesting consequence of this is that Electropotence always targets something whether you pay the mana into it or not. This could make for a really devastating combo with something like a Hirobi Death's Wail, for example. Now let's have a look at this other card, Sparktongue Dragon. We'll say that Amy plays the Sparktongue Dragon and says that she wants to deal 3 damage to Nick, and Nick is going to Deflecting Swat that ability to change the target to Amy. Is there any difference in the answer to this scenario? Well, the wording on these abilities is pretty similar, but let's notice that the Sparktongue Dragon says when you do, whereas Electropotence says if you do. That's important because when is a word that's used to introduce a triggered ability. The second instance of this word in Sparktongue Dragon's ability indicates that this card actually has 2 triggered abilities. The first one has no target and simply gives Amy an opportunity to pay some mana when it resolves. The second triggers when Amy pays that mana and it targets Nick. This is the ability that actually deals damage. Now, let's consider how that fits in with the Deflecting Swat. The ability that targets Nick and deals damage doesn't even trigger until after Amy has paid the mana, meaning that if Nick plays a Deflecting Swat to change the target of that ability to Amy, she could not stop the damage by just not paying. She would have to counter the second triggered ability or otherwise become an illegal target to save her life points. If you're wondering why there's a discrepancy between how these very similar abilities function, I have another video where I talked with Magic designer Gavin Verhey about exactly this topic. You might also be interested in some of the practical aspects to questions like this. Issues can come up because when players often attempt to shortcut through these resolutions, they assume that the opponent will not respond. And this can lead to some awkward situations where a player states that they're doing something and the opponent uses the information that they would not normally officially have access to in order to determine whether they want to respond to that. I have another video where I talked about this topic in some depth, and I encourage you to check that out if that's something you're interested in. Rather than rehashing information that I've already covered in other videos, I'll close out with a couple of challenge questions that you can use to test your understanding. Amy plays a Batterhorn, and she says that she's using the ability to destroy Nick's Soul Ring. Nick then plays a Deflecting Swat to change the target of that ability to Amy's Soul Ring. Can Amy change her mind and choose not to destroy her Soul Ring? The answer to this question is exactly like the Electropotence example. Batterhorn always has to target an artifact with its ability. The choice of whether to destroy the targeted artifact is made on resolution. If you don't want to destroy the thing that it's targeting at that time, you can just not do it. In contrast, if you attack with an Acolyte hybrid, then you can choose to target an artifact with its ability or not. If you didn't target anything, the ability will just do nothing. On the other hand, if you target an artifact, this ability does not say that destroying the target is optional the way Batterhorn does. This means that if the target changes and you don't like the new one, well, that's just too bad for you and your Soul Ring. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.